So good, so good, so good.
Everything you want for summer is at Nordstrom Rack stores now and up to 60% off. Stock up and save on the brands you love like Vince, Sam Edelman, Frame, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Sunday morning. Well, Memorial Day weekend. With us today is Steve Cates. What's going on in the skies? And I love when we talk about what's going on Mars and then on the moon. And my son was telling me about Neptune the other day, all the strange things that are going on. Well, Steve Cates, Sunday morning, where do you want to start this morning?
Well, good morning, John, and a great Memorial Day weekend as we salute, of course, those that have died in the service of our country. A solemn weekend. But, John, let's continue on the conversation everywhere, it seems, the discussion of potential alien life out there. And I'd like to dig deeper into this because recently many people may have heard that ex-CIA scientist Dr. Hal Puthoff and also some other deep dive scientists in the CIA realm, like Dr. Eric Davis, gave us some information which is yet unsubstantiated, that from these crash retrievals that many in the government say, like David Grush, whistleblower, that we've talked about now being maybe 4 distinct types of alien extraterrestrials. One being the Greys, the other these tall blonde Nordics, the reptilians, God help us, imagine that, John, and these ones that look like insects. But a deeper dive, John, into these Greys, in some of these alleged autopsy, examinations, some have said that when they dug deeper into the body, what came out was like a bunch of cotton, as if these were just synthetic. In other words, not actually extraterrestrials in the sense, but maybe the Greys are more like the little foot soldiers being more robotic and maybe synthesized. So the story continues. Nobody knows for sure. But it sure keeps our imagination strong, doesn't it, John?
Well, I thought, they said 4 varieties.
Right.
Well, according to Star Trek, there's at least 57.
That's true. I don't want to laugh at the whole subject, John, but from science, all we need, obviously, the understatement that everybody out there would probably say, hey, Dr. Sky, we know this. Let's get some evidence, because of all the time, John, of the 80-plus years or more here, let's say just in the United States and about the world studying this, give us at least some shred of credible evidence. But I'm
at least a clear picture instead of a picture from the 1950s.
Exactly. But the beat goes on, and it's interesting. We'll continue to cover it on our Dr. Sky Experience, as other good hosts here on this station. But, John, shifting gears, let's talk more about space. The reality of going to the stars. Elon Musk and his soon-to-be launched, if it hasn't already been launched, the Starship 12. What's this whole rocket? The most powerful rocket, John, in the world. 16 million pounds of thrust with 33 Raptor engines. The great Apollo Saturn V got to 7.5 million pounds. But they're going to be testing a brand new booster, and they're also going to be testing the Gen 3 Starship. That's the piece on top of the big booster that eventually, if all goes well, and we hope it does, send people to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And it's a very interesting story because this rocket, every time they launched it in the past, they had damage, John, at the launch pad. So they've improved what they call the flame and water recovery system on the bottom, so they don't have to rebuild the launch pad every time they launch a rocket. So Elon Musk doing great things. But it gets better, John. Listen to this story, folks. This is amazing. SpaceX will intentionally slam a booster from a previous rocket that they've had in space a long time ago, a Falcon 9. They're going to slam, John, and they're looking to target an area of the moon. The 45-foot booster rocket will be slammed into the moon on or about August the 5th. Now, people with small telescopes, this may be something yours truly will be out there, and we'll talk more about it. They're doing it so they can test what kind of impact crater dust you get. So if we're landing on the moon, we want to know what sizable objects do to release this debris from craters. It slammed into none other than a crater named Einstein. So, John, that's a fascinating thing. An intentional.
Well, and the
crash
truth
of a-
is,
Yeah.
there's so many rumors that, and even some of the astronauts talked about it, that the moon may be hollow.
Yes,
But
John,
the truth is,
yeah.
I don't know what the truth is.
Well, John, here's some facts. When the Apollo astronauts sent their seismometers on the moon, the Apollo astronauts, there was a distinctive ringing in the moon, meaning that somewhere deep down in the moon, it may be not 100% hollow. Obviously, that's not proven science. But the density and composition of the moon is distinctly different than that of the Earth. And we see a minimal, if no magnetic field on the moon. But there's been many movies, John, that came out talking about the hollowness of the moon. And who knows what that is, but that's more on the sci-fi side. Now, if we move on to other strange things in the universe, we call it the mystery of the week. What's happening here, John, is we're hearing from meteorologists around the world that we're set up for a super El Nino event. And the distinction between El Nino and La Nina is this. El Nino is warmer water in the Pacific, which can cause different amounts of weather conditions, whereas the opposite, the La Nina, is the colder water, and it changes the weather. But space scientists, John, have even talked about this. Since all weather comes from the sun, a new theory is that these magnetic waves move from the poles of the sun over the course of a solar cycle. And once they meet at the equator, they can change the event time between what happens as far as a big or a minimal solar cycle. So to keep it simple, the longer time between these termination events, the weaker the solar cycle. But what does it have to do with El Nino? Obviously, all weather comes from the sun. So we really don't know the true definition of a solar cycle, but in Earth terms, we can expect this to happen, meaning what? The super El Nino could start as early as July, all the way to the end of the year. The scientists say there's a 96% chance that that will be a strong one. And this particular thing will change the weather. So we'll have over here in the west coast of the United States, warmer and wetter. In the southern part of the United States, it'll be cooler and wetter. So, John, in simple terms, all weather comes from the sun. This El Nino can affect us in good and bad ways, but we'll keep you posted on the big changes.
Well, Dr. Sky and Steve Cates, there's also finally the United Nations and other world organizations say that we were wrong about climate change.
Absolutely.
And I've always said that, and maybe we should talk about it next week in more detail, because I've always said that the planet Earth is a living entity making constant adjustments on what's going on. I'll give you one example. When the people say, well, CO2 has gone up. And you know the real reason CO2 has gone up? The planet Earth made an adjustment. If you have 7 billion people living in the world, and all of a sudden you need enough food for 8 billion people, the CO2 has to go up to create more plant life for people, the extra billion people to eat. But we'll talk more about it in the near future.
Right, John. And just quickly in closing, also to go along the same lines about how the Earth can heal itself. Evidence shows that a solar storm some 12,000 years ago was 500 times the big one in 1859. And you're right, and scientists are studying more that the Earth has this healing effect. Not that we should be rabid polluters, but, John, it's an amazing planet, and we haven't yet found another one like it out there in the universe.